So we're gonna look at some of the past stuff they've said about EVA. I've got some stuff here. We've had this talked about for years now, and some interesting stuff has been said about it in the past that we actually just heard about in the monthly report here. So let's listen to what they were saying about EVA Tier 2 a couple of years ago and see how it's translating into the game.
Now, tractor beam, obviously the grapple hook is, at the moment, it's, you're Spider-Man in space. Now, obviously, fundamentally, that doesn't mean that, you're just going to have this and you can just tractor beam forever. But vice versa, you've also got unlimited EVA fuel with EVA. So at the moment, you can just EVA everywhere you want to go. You can tractor beam everywhere you're going to go. So for 312, I'd say really enjoy that, guys, because that's something that is not going to be a long-term endeavor. Because what we want to do to create a more fun experience is that, okay, I've got limited fuel in my EVA pack. So, I don't want to be stuck out in the black without fuel. And then it's like, okay, I've got a limited battery on my multi-tool, but maybe I'm using that multi-tool for salvage purposes. Maybe I'm using it for cutting. Maybe I'm using it for healing. Maybe I'm using it for the tractor beam. So all of a sudden, you've got a limited use tool that has multiple uses in gameplay, but could potentially get you out of a bind, or if you need a long range grapple hook and EVA. And then you've got 0G push pull. Now 0G push pull, the fundamental of 0G, it's free. So it's just under your own effort. You're not consuming a resource. So the 0G push pull is kind of like what I'd call like wall climbing. I get to a location, let's say it's a derelict. I can now 0G push pull. I'm pulling myself around. I'm pulling myself inside. I'm using these grapple holds to get to my location. And you're like, cool, but I'm not expending any resource. And all of a sudden there we have these three mechanics. We have 0G push pull, we have tractor beam, and we have EVA.
I think that's super, super crucial. That's part of their whole thing when it comes to the game in general. Like, they want us to have to go out and say, hey, you picked a specific loadout for your mining setup. Well, you didn't pick the certain tools that you needed for this type of rock, just this type of rock, so you can't crack that rock, only this one. You got to make these choices, make that call beforehand, plan ahead. And yeah, I think Star Citizen takes too long right now because everything is constantly scattered. We're constantly getting wiped and reset and things like that. But in the future, when it's easier to get everything together for when we want to play, I think it's going to be really crucial for us to also have to plan for this kind of stuff. I think it adds a lot of weight to the things we're doing, especially when it comes to things like traversal. I like this kind of choice. I don't know what you guys think. I'd love to hear your opinion on this idea of like limited traversal fuel. Because it's not like you'll never be out of luck. You'll always be able to push and pull. But the idea of running out of EVA fuel is I'm sure is going to make a lot of people a little bit nervous about gameplay. But here they are talking about it again. It's actually towards the end of last year. So this gives us not only a better idea of what they're planning for the future, this also shows us it working in the game already for Squadron 42. Here it is.
First off, you're not upright. You're in more of what we call the Iron Man pose, so you're leaning forward. We still retain the upright pose for certain circumstances, but it means that you've got a better sense of your actual volume when you're traversing forward, so you've not got these legs that are beneath you. But you can totally look around 360 degrees. Your camera is stable, so you get a good orientation. When you look back, you see your body. It's fully decoupled, so you're not just pushing forward and you're flying like a spaceship. You push forward, and that gives you an initial inertia in that direction, and you will keep going in that direction.
I love that. Kind of makes me wonder if that's going to happen when we jump off of ships while they're moving. I'm hoping what they end up doing is just use the EVA system as a sort of booster system that we can use to save ourselves when we're falling.
But then when you want to change, you just need to look at another direction and you push that way. And the way we've implemented it, it's almost like your suit's kind of similar to the IFCS on the ships, that it kind of like counters the forces and then allows you to go in that way. We actually originally tried it where you would drift and actually do the curve, but it just made traversing more intricate spaces, which is what we want to do. Eventually we want to be able to turn gravity off in ships and that you can take those down. And so all of those tight, intricate areas that we've built over the last 7, 8, 10 years now, I suppose, that you can go into those tight areas, you need it to be stable. You need it to be in a position where you can turn on a dime, that you can look upside down, that you get a good sense of what, your orientation. And I think that's something that we've really pushed ahead on EVA T2. And to be honest, the engineering team have done a really fantastic job. I find it a lot of fun flying around in EVA.
I remember watching this live and just being like, oh my God, please put the B-roll on.
Well, and as Chris says, in terms of, you know,
Here we go.
the EVA, this is what you're seeing here is that you'll probably see some of the, in the third person, the thrusters are not firing because
it's
decoupled.
the old VFX, but it's also the old VFX code. So we haven't part of the proper, this is a current PU suit versus what we'll have is a new one with the proper like pack that has the thrusters in the right position and when you go forward.
So we'll probably get a new...
So what you're actually seeing here is you've actually connected...
I wonder if we'll get a new default suit with an EVA on it, or if they will leave us default without EVA capabilities. I don't know, because he just mentioned a new suit.
to this surface.
Maybe they'll
So
just
now
add
it's
one to
almost
the
like
default
you're
suit.
in a prone situation, but this is going to be what more our new prone will be.
So we're just sort of pulling ourselves along. And if we wanted to at this point, we could stop and we could push off against it, and then we would just go floating out into space. So that's the sort of idea of what we call push-pull.
And so what you're seeing here...
He just pushed himself off.
So what you're seeing here, that's actually kind of, you're just floating alongside the actual, this fin of this Asiata station. And this is actually keeping you in this orbit. And then if you did, and that's just, you just push forward and go, where you can actually jump off into space. But then this becomes one of the, if you look at physical traversal where you've got jumping. And
So I'm wondering, because they don't get too into detail with this, is he going to hit this eventually? Because it curves. So is he going to just keep, is this the kind of thing where you're like locked to the surface that you're on, or you just go straight? Because if you're not just going straight, that's going to be really weird. But it would be very cool if you just kept going like you were actually decoupled and floated off the side of whatever it was. But they didn't specify that here.
But then this becomes one of the, if you look at physical traversal where you've got jumping and mantling and vaulting, this is where we have 0G push-pull, we have the tractor beam that kind of pulls you around in EVA, and then we have your EVA pack, which is limited by your resource of EVA fuel. So this allows you to kind of manipulate and go in EVA, and allows us as developers to build EVA traversal spaces, both wide-ranging and both small scale.
So yeah, here's I mean, we were before in first person looking around, but here's us cutting out to third person to actually show you what your character and body's doing. And so there's a lot of, I mean, and these are still blockout animations actually, but so there'll be a lot more like nuance or fidelity to it. But yeah, you have a lot more control, directional sense, ability to look around, ability to
I like how it straight up looks like you're going through air right here.
Directional sense, ability to look around, ability to stop yourself. So I think, in this one, we're going to come up close to the glass above it.
Yes.
And you're actually going to see us, like if you fly into something, you sort of arrest, again, block out animation, but you're going to, as we get down close to it, I think we're going to come down, you'll see as our character comes down here, our player comes down here, put our hands out to brace ourselves to stop us.
It makes me laugh so hard because like they clearly edit it because it's just really ugly the way it happens.
Down here, player comes down here, put our hands out.
Okay, let's just cut. Here is one last little update that we got on EVA from back in the day, and I think he says some of the stuff that we just heard, but again, just solidifying how they do stick to the general plan of a lot of these mechanics. It just takes a while for them to get them developed.
0G. Talk to us about 0G and EVA. Big change. Some changes coming to that
Yes.
too.
So the biggest thing about EVA is that we're eventually going to be introducing an EVA fuel to EVA, so that it has like a compressed inert gas that you use to utilize your EVA. We're turning it into a decoupled mode. So essentially, you use your jets to go in a single direction, and then you don't have to press the controls anymore, and you'll continue going in that direction. Rather than right now, you're like a ship, you push forward and you keep pushing forward and moving, and then you release and you stop. So we're turning it into a decoupled mode. Alongside adding in the fuel mechanic or the inert gas that allows you to do that, we're going to be introducing what we call 0G push-pull. So you'll be able to attach onto things and basically pull yourself on the outside of an 890 jump or climb on things. And essentially, EVA T2, which introduces decoupled and the fuel, and 0G push-pull, and then the tractor beam, those three mechanics will create the traversal mechanics to create EVA traversal puzzles and EVA traversal missions.
I think it's pretty cool. This is part of why I like space. I don't know about y'all, but like the fact that they can make so much out of just moving around in the game is going to be pretty cool. The types of like kind of puzzles and stuff that I think they can do with derelicts in 0G, with space stations, as you've seen with Covalix, like they can make some really cool environments with this stuff and require some really interesting things with EVA and 0G push and pull. So that's kind of the background of EVA. And now we're seeing in the monthly report in April, they are adding EVA fuel to the actor loadout. This is a big deal. This is a big feature coming through, and it's coming from Squadron 42. So I think this will be the first time we really get to see what they've done with a Squadron feature. If it's going to be polished, if it's going to play like a finished game, or if it's still going to play like a Star Citizen Alpha implementation. We'll see what happens.